Lately, I've been feeling a lot of nostalgia for my teenage self. I've gone through different phases of adulthood, but I found myself circling back to the same me that I was then. A lot of my interests and aesthetic inspiration seems to be the same right now as it was when I was around 18 or 19, which just reinforces that I am the same me that I always was, although I'm a bit hotter now and definitely wiser. Come with me on this journey of reconnecting to my inner teen.
You look cute.
You look cute.
Thanks, Shane. I feel like I would have loved this outfit as a teenager. When I was middle school, maybe even a preteen, this was one of my favorite color combinations, like a dark, rich purple plum with green. And I just used to wear a lot of mini skirts. I loved boots, but I also loved Vans. And believe it or not, I was a silver girly until I hit my early 20s, and that's when I went gold. This is a plum black tea. I don't have a tea tray or anything in here, so I am truly just risking my life. But this feels very fitting because when I was a teen, I drank tons of black fruit teas. My favorite tea was the peach black tea by Stash, and I would put an ungodly amount of honey or just straight up spoonfuls of white sugar in there. I actually kind of want to go get that tea again just for the nostalgia. I think teenage me would be really surprised to see how little makeup I wear now because I wore so much makeup back then. Like I wouldn't leave the house without my makeup. I would carry around whole ass palettes of eyeshadow in my tote bags, place to place with me. I don't remember thinking too far into my future as a teenager, but I do remember I really wanted to live in New York or LA. That was a big goal of mine, and work in fashion. So I think teenage me would be a little bit surprised to see that I'm still in Washington State, and it feels bittersweet to say that because I do think there's a part of me that's a little bit sad that I never took that leap or was able to apply myself well enough and organize my shit enough to get out of the state that I grew up in. I'm not in my hometown, but then another part of me has really learned to love Washington State and love the Pacific Northwest as I've gotten older. I always envisioned myself eventually being a mother. I mean, I think I envisioned myself being a wife, but I'm not sure what that looked like to me. I don't know that I imagined myself in the super traditional, domesticated type of situation. And I also know that I really wanted to be able to speak French. Je ne parle français. Je ne parle français. But I do still want to learn. I feel like I owe it to my teenage self to learn. I never drank coffee in high school. I was drinking matcha and chai. I love a cardamom latte. This is my first time putting it in my matcha. Definitely recommend. got cyberbullied, and I didn't realize until later in life how much that actually affected me. There used to be this website called Is Anyone Up? It is no longer in existence. There is a documentary about it, maybe on Netflix, I'm not sure, but it was essentially a, how do I say this in YouTube appropriate language? It was like a revenge website where you would submit a certain type of photos of your ex. I ended up on this website and someone in the comments linked it back to my Facebook, and this was my Facebook photo at the time. I actually to this day have the photo that I'm showing you privated because it just destroyed me so deeply that I never wanted anybody to see that again. So I feel like posting it here is some sort of reclamation of that, and looking at it, it's like not this horrible picture that the internet made it to be. And the comments absolutely ripped me apart. Like, people were so mean. It was like they were ripping apart every single part of my looks. There was another photo where you could see like the deodorant underneath my armpits, and I got ripped apart for that. You could see my feet in one, and I got ripped apart for my feet being too big. I keep shifting as I tell this story because the lighting is getting a little bit weird, but it was girls who I knew, who I'd been friends with, not just friends, like best friends, like girls who had spent so much time at my house as a teenager, eaten my food, slept in my bed, like joining up with the masses and totally tearing me apart based on what I looked like. And that really deeply shifted and changed how I felt about myself, in addition to people picking apart and totally slandering what I look like, which is crazy that I choose to show up online at all after what I've been through with the internet, but here I am. I also got tons of slut shaming and just people calling me a slut, a whore, whatever other name you can call a woman. And since my Facebook had been linked in this post, it wasn't just in the comments. I had people sending me messages on Facebook, just yelling at me, calling me all the names that they could, telling me how ugly I am, what a slut I am. And in that same breath, there was also men trying to hit on me or trying to talk shit about me and hit on me at the same time. It was just like, I don't wish that on anybody. It was such a crazy experience to sit through, especially at such a fragile age. I think if it happened to me now, it would not hit me in the same way as it did then. And I don't know what the moral of that story is besides be nice to people, and be nice to people on the internet. And if you were cyberbullied as a teen or a child or an adult, like, I'm here for you. It's crazy because it can literally happen to anyone, and it does change the way I think, especially in those fragile teenage years. Yes, I consider 18, 19 still to be a teen. I don't know, I just didn't really have the same kind of grit, I guess, that I do now, where I just don't really give a fuck. Like, I think I'm hot and that's all that matters. But yeah, that was just wild because I wanted so badly to fit into a space that I already didn't fit into, which was like kind of the emo scene community, and then to just totally be destroyed. Like, people can be ugly, but we rise. That being said, I think there's something so beautiful about not peaking in high school and peaking later in life instead. To go work a retail shift. I have this app that I use for gig work, except
the gig work is all different retail shifts that need to be covered. This feels very reminiscent of my teenage years because I worked retail as a teen. I don't know if I'm allowed to share. I think I can since I don't work there all the time, but this is at Marc Jacob, which is very elevated compared to the places I was working as a teen. It's just a 4-hour shift. The app is called Reflex. I'll link it in my description box in case anybody else is interested. Unlike my teenage self, I'm here incredibly early. So I'm just sitting in my car. I didn't bring a book or anything. Do you really like the outfit I picked? I don't feel like there's a good way to show you, so hopefully I can show you after.
Food is ready.
Sun is falling, speed in the black. Nobody driving, we're in the back. To the end of the world. Tide will rise,
Feeling my inner teenager. Gosh, I just feel like there was so many different stages of teenagehood, like 13 to 19 feel like such a long stretch of time. There were so many different versions of me during that. I talk a lot about healing your inner child and also super important work to do. When I think of my teenage years, there's actually a lot of sadness and heaviness that I have for teenage me. Like in some ways I was super free during that time, but I was also dealing with very extreme depression in addition to what I think is the normal teenage experience of trying to figure out my identity and who I am in this world. When I entered teenagehood, I really wanted to be a fashion designer. I think teenage me would be kind of excited to know that I still do work with clothing, even though it is more in the realms of curating and selling vintage clothing. But it's interesting because that's not really what I want to do long term. I've changed a little bit in that aspect. I do think the idea of having my own clothing line could be cool, but it's not this burning desire the way that it was for me back then. But in my early teenage years, I was just super influenced by media. I would spend all of my money on magazines, so I would walk down to the supermarket and get Teen Vogue, Cosmo Girl, Elle Girl, Nylon, and just like soak everything up from those magazines. I also remember watching Laguna Beach, Project Runway. We actually didn't have cable until I was in high school, but I would go to my neighbors' houses and watch a lot of these shows during my early teenagehood. I was definitely online a lot, like on the internet. I had Zanga, I had MySpace, and this is also where I was making a lot of my friends. I was always introverted and shy, so online felt like a space where I had more freedom to express myself, especially since I felt different than a lot of my peers. And during my later teenage years, this evolved into Facebook, Tumblr. I had a blogspot blog, lookbook.nu. Tumblr was definitely my favorite. I also loved to create. I did find these, so we'll pull out a little nostalgia in a minute. But I remember taking composition notebook as a project with my friend. We went through fashion magazines and cut up all these different outfits and sectioned them off into different categories, kind of curated our own style inspiration book that way. Oh, some of these collages are from early 20s, so I guess just out of teenage years. I thought There was, oh, this. I made this collage in maybe middle school, and this was on my binder, and I was obsessed with it. I got it laminated. But as you can see, all of my influence was very pop culture media based. Like, I have the Harajuku Girls camera. It's actually funny that I have a similar sort of hairstyle to this now. And I loved really colorful statement pieces, kind of like the shoe. I guess I'll show you my collage work from a little bit later. Still pretty young, maybe like 20 years old-ish when I made these. I haven't worked with collage. I think this was literally the last time that I worked with collage other than like a vision board. But yeah, basically I started my early teenagehood just really into fashion, loud statement pieces, but I also really liked the boho style. And then I went scene. This is also when I was really into MySpace. I went totally scene and emo. I was listening to Taking Back Sunday, Fall Out Boy. I went to Warped Tour, but it's interesting because around this time I was also a little raver and liked to go to raves and listen to electronic music as well. And I feel like there was crossover between those two. At the same time, I was really interested in hippie counterculture from the late 60s and early 70s. I would spend a lot of time, I used to love just reading Wikipedia articles, but reading about Woodstock, reading about different bands from the 70s, watching like the Woodstock documentary, the Monterey Music Festival. There were these three different, I guess they were all countercultures that I was super interested in, but didn't really know where I belonged. I also wanted to be an artist. I feel like my work from high school, some of it is so cringy, but I drew a ballet flat because we were wearing ballet flats. I think we had to draw hands in art class, and I chose to make mine whimsical. This art feels so cringy to look at now, but the way that I could complete art with such confidence back then, even if it didn't look great, like I wish I had that confidence with my art now. Most of the art that I made was to give to other people. I actually still have some of the art. I think I have almost all the art people have ever given me somewhere, but just in these folders, I have a few things that people gave me. So this is one that one of my friends, I've lost touch with him, made for me. And I've lost touch with all of these friends, but somebody else made me a mermaid and a fairy. I was just really into, we didn't call it whimsy then, but like the whimsy, the fantasy. Another friend made me this mermaid drawing. It's signed. Speaking of me being interested in like the hippie culture, I actually went to my first rainbow gathering when I was 18 or 19, and I was obsessed. I think a big pivot for me with moving away from more pop culture influences to a little bit more niche influences was when I was 18 and I started dating this guy and he lived in the Capitol Hill neighborhood of Seattle, which was like, I guess it still is like a cool neighborhood, and he was a DJ, and all of this is very cool, especially when you're 18. And I pretty much lived with him, except we were dating, but we weren't like officially dating. And that was by my choice, as he would later remind me as I had a meltdown in his apartment while he paraded lovers in front of me. But I'm not a victim here because, again, it was my choice and my declaration that I didn't want us to be in this committed relationship. And I also had other lovers. But he was really into the Occupy movement and just very anti magazines, for example. I guess anti-pop culture. And so when I started dating him, that was the first time that I wasn't rushing to the store to get all the new issues of these magazines. I was still getting like all of my life inspiration off Tumblr though, so I don't know how much of a severance of pop culture that really was, but it was a change for me. Anyway, we didn't last too long. Ended up being kind of a shit show living with him, and I moved in with my friend Rachel, who you saw at the beginning of this vlog. We've been friends for a very long time. Moved into an apartment with her, and that's when I started going to the rainbow gatherings and trying to discover a different side of myself, and revisiting all this teenage nostalgia has been so much fun, which, by the way, I found this incense in a random little store the other day, and I was excited because I remember when I was living on Capitol Hill, I would go down to Pike Place and purchase the same brand of incense at a little shop called Tenzing Momo, which is probably still there. But I just haven't seen this brand for a while. Haven't burned it yet, but finding it while I'm filming this video about healing my inner teenager was really cool. Probably gonna go ahead and end the vlog now. Thank you for being here. If you made it this far, you might as well hit the subscribe button. I am trying to post vlogs for you more frequently. I'm just accepting the fact that I need to be less complex in the ideas that I have for these vlogs and just pick up the damn camera and record. With that, I will see you next time. Ciao.